Hi everyone, I am Mae Therese Villafuerte. Me and my group will explain to you one of the chapters of The Whale and the Reactor, the technologies as forms of life. From the early days of man, space travel comes a story that exemplifies what is most fascinating about the human encounter with modern technology. In 1962, John Glenn went to space on Friendship 7 and noticed the continents and the oceans are moving beneath him. He was in the awe by the sensation. In philosophy of technology, it is very reasonable to have questions about the nature of building artificial realities. The philosophy of technology would be a topic widely discussed by scholars and technical professionals. One might even think that the basic issues in this field would be well defined. Its central controversies will warn. However, such is not the case. At this late date in the development of our industrial technological, the most accurate observation to be made about the philosophy of technology is that there really isn't one. There is no case that talks about the philosophy of technology. The task of philosophy of technology is to examine critically the nature and significance of artificial aids to human activity. However, according to the writings of the 20th century philosophers, you can't find anything related about it at all. In the Encyclopedia of Philosophy, there are only texts of major discourse topics but no technology. There are many writers who have taken up the topic to light, but it were not enduring with substances, according to Langdon Wiener. Only Karl Marx, in his theory of historical materialism, or Martin Heidegger, in his theory of ontology, had encountered the subject in the center of broader topics. It may be the philosophy is a derivative of more fundamental questions, for despite the fact that nobody would deny its importance to an adequate understanding of the human condition. Technology has never joined epistemology, metaphysics, aesthetics, law, science, and politics as a fully respectable topic for philosophical inquiry. While in the field of engineering, they don't typically talk about philosophical questions about their field. Langdon asked his engineering friends about philosophy in engineering. The response is puzzlement. He believes that the people who ask important questions are usually seen as danger cranks and radicals. In technological somnambulism, or sleepwalking, Langdon questioned why a culture based on sophisticated instruments, techniques, and systems remains steady in examining its very own foundation. He believes that society thought that the idea of progress, which can be seen in the 20th century, where it is believed that the only way to improve human condition is with machines, techniques, and chemicals. Another reason why the philosophy of technology has not gathered enough attention because of human relationship to technical things is too obvious to have serious conversation. The possible concerns about the technology are making and use. Making is the matter how things work, and making things work, how things work is the domain of who prepare artificial aids to human activity and keep them in good working condition. People who don't fit is as seen have a little interest about the materials and principles and procedure.
Hello, good day. I am Mae Therese Montejo, and I will be discussing about the making and the use of technology. Others are more concerned with tools and their uses. We interact with things after they have been created on occasion to achieve specific goals. The proper interpretation of technology's meaning in the mode of use appears to be nothing more complicated than unusually limited and non-problematic interaction. Technology is the practical application of scientific knowledge in our daily lives. So, in general, we use technology whenever we apply our scientific knowledge to a specific goal. Technology usually entails a specific piece of equipment, but that equipment can be incredibly simple or dazzlingly complex. There are numerous types of technology because technology can be so simple or complex. The first one is the mechanical technology, the technology of assembling mechanical parts to produce, control, and transmit motion. Example applications: gear systems in a car transmission, brakes on a bicycle, agitator in a washing machine, and latch on a door. The second one is the electronics technology. It is the application of scientific theories and principles in the design, manufacture, installation, testing, service, use, and control of electrical and electronic parts, equipment, and systems. Mobile phones, TV remotes, DVD and CD players, and digital cameras are a few examples. The third one is the industrial and manufacturing technology. So it is a technology that aims to either produce a product on a large scale or perform another large scale function where customers are not directly present. For example, he could be manufacturing automobiles or generating electricity. The fourth one is the medical technology. So it is a type of technology used for disease diagnosis, treatment, or prevention. So these can include MRI scanners, which take image of the inside of the human body, ventilators, which breathe for people, and even drugs and medicines that people take to make them feel better. The language of use includes standard terms that allow us to interpret technologies in a variety of moral contexts. Tools can be used well or poorly, as well as for good or bad purposes. Because technological objects and processes have a promiscuous utility, they are assumed to be fundamentally moral neutral. So, a good use of technology is one that improves people's physical, mental, spiritual, and moral well being. It assists people in becoming healthier, more educated, more loving of God and neighbor, and better decision makers. A bad technology will make us sicker, less educated, less loving of others, and less capable of making moral decisions. Technology frequently simply makes action easier, and we want good technology that facilitates good actions, not bad technology that facilitates bad actions. The conventional concept of technology is impeding the advancement of technology philosophy. The norm is that the pattern in making are for practitioners only, and patterns in use are on occasional, non-structuring occurrence. Further discussion is deemed irrelevant. So the philosophy of technology continues to be field in the making, and as such is characterized by the coexistence of a number of different approaches to or perhaps styles of doing philosophy. So, the philosophy of technology denotes a considerable variety of philosophical endeavors that all in some way of reflect on technology. So, the basic task for a philosophy of technology is to examine critically the nature and significance of artificial aids to human activity. Langdon believes that technologies are not merely aids to human activity but forces acting to reshape that activity and its meaning. So the introduction of a technique or technology in a workplace can drastically change the process of production, changing the meaning of work in that area. So the kinds of things we are apt to see as mere technological entities become much more interesting and problematic if we begin to observe how broadly they are involved in conditions of social and moral life. So, technology affects the way individuals communicate, learn, and think. One aspect of technology that has a great impact on society is how it affects learning. It's made learning more interactive, that collaborative. This helps people better engage with material, are learning, and have trouble with. Modern technology has paved the way for multifunctional devices like the smartwatch and the smartphone. Computers are increasingly faster, more portable, and higher powered than ever before. So, with all of these revolutions, technology has also made our lives easier, faster, better, and more fun. Technologies are not merely aids to human activity but also powerful forces acting to reshape that activity and its meaning. So, of course, the social arena is directly and profoundly influenced by tech. So, cites a recent court case from San Diego where in Los Angeles, virtually everyone travels everywhere by car of a young man who enjoyed taking long walks at night through the streets of San Diego and was repeatedly arrested by police as such a suspicious character. So a criminal court rather ruled, however, that merely traveling by foot is not yet a crime. Yet, it is very important not simply to see tech as the cause of all world effects, rather as technologies are being built and put to use. Significant alterations in pattern of human activity in human institutions are really taking place. So all of the same tech developments are absorbed into the ever-mutating process of human activity so that they seem to be taken for granted and are integrated into our view of what is natural and or inherent will they become, or the second nature as winner, taking after Wittgenstein terms it, they becomes part of our forms of life. We do not ponder the recurring patterns of life's activity and tend to become unconscious processes taken for granted. So there is, however, one point at which we may become aware of a pattern taking shape the very first time that we encounter it. So Langdon recalls a situation where his student went to him and told that this paper crushed that isn't what Langdon is familiar with. So Landry realizes that his student was asking him to recognize a new world of parts and pieces and to acknowledge appropriate practice and expectations that hold in that world. In his times, a number of activities that employ computers as their operating medium have been legally defined as crimes. So the law has had to stretch and reorient its traditional categories to encompass such problems, creating whole new classes of offenses and offenders. So many computer crimes are committed as a means of stealing money or valuable information, although financial gain is not always the objective. In fact, some of the most notorious incidents of computer crime involve hackers seeking bragging rights by overcoming government or corporate cybersecurity measure. Laws concerning computer crimes have been enacted at the state and federal levels. In 1986, Congress passed the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, or CFAA. This law has been amended and expanded as inherent technology as advanced and continues to form the basis for federal prosecutions of computer-related criminal activities.
Hi everyone, I am Mary Joyce Andrin and I am going to discuss paragraph 15 to paragraph 21. The ways in which technical devices tend to engender distinctive worlds of their own can be seen in a more familiar case. Picture two men traveling in the same direction along a street on a peaceful, sunny day, one of them afoot and the other driving an automobile. The world continues to evolve so as technology tends to create new unique worlds. Let's say, for example, two men traveling together. The one man is using a car for traveling and the other man is just walking. So basically, the man who is walking will enjoy his walk where he's headed to. He can pause for a moment or communicate with other people whom he meets, so it may take him a while to arrive to his destination. While on the other hand, the man who uses his car to travel may eventually not enjoy his ride since His mind is focused on driving and not able to communicate with others, but he will arrive early compared to the man who is walking. Imagine a situation in which the two persons are next door neighbors. The man in the automobile observes his friend strolling along the street and wishes to say hello. He slows down, honks his horn, rolls down the window, sticks out his head, and shouts across the street. Technology may innovate, however, may cause a sudden gap of communication to the interaction between people. Like, for instance, if a person seems to be that swamped and only he or she will have the opportunity to invite a person while he or she is driving, then we're going to invite a person not in a common way, unlike before where technology did not exist. In cities such as Los Angeles, where the physical landscape and prevailing social habits assume everyone drives a car, the simple act of walking can be a mere cause for alarm. The U.S. Supreme Court decided one case involving a young man who enjoyed taking long walks late at night through the streets of San Diego and was repeatedly arrested by police as a suspicious character. There is a real difference between the world of a driver and the pedestrian. It's quite complicated since the driver has their own world and that is to focus mainly on transportation policies, whereas the pedestrian may roam around and not to worry anything about transportation policies. So, in the cities of Los Angeles, assumes everyone is driving a car and that a mere walk can cause an alarm. The point is that because of technology, it may somewhat arise to an accusation to an innocent person. Knowing how automobiles are made, how they operate, and how they are used, and knowing about the traffic laws and urban transportation policies does little to help us understand how automobiles affect the texture of modern life. What is needed is an interpretation of life, both obvious and subtle, in which everyday life is transformed by the mediating role of technical devices. Innovations may have an impact in today's reality, and it may somehow help us to comprehend the world of the drivers with regards to the laws governing traffic and regulations governing urban transportation. By the means of technology, the various aspects of modern life constantly transforming, even the way how we perceive things, how our own ideas, habits, the way we socialize have all been reshaped dramatically as a result of modern technological advancement. For instance, whenever there is a new cell phone being introduced, of course, especially those people that love cell phones will definitely be curious about its features. So, personally, I love cell phones, and whenever there is a new cell phone being released, then I am really excited and I am curious about its features. Like, what is the megapixel of that phone? Does it have plenty of storage? Does it have a long image capacity? Does it have a warp speeding processing? Does it have a fingerprint sensor? Does it have a large RAM? I am often curious about these questions, if it is worth it to buy such expensive gadget. The idea that technological innovation is the basic cause of changes in society and that human beings have little choice other than to sit back and watch this ineluctable process unfold. But the concept of determinism is much too strong, far too sweeping in its implication to provide an adequate theory. Technological innovation is one of the causes of the changes in our society. As our world continues to evolve, we can stop these things from happening. Technically, this phenomenon may bound to happen, if not today, but possibly in the future. The strength of this method is that they shed light on phenomena that were previously overlooked. But an unfortunate shortcoming of technology assessment is that it tends to see technological change as a cause and everything that follows is an effect or impact. So when there is a cause, there is also an effect. The role of a social scientist is to discover, analyze, and interpret the social implications of technology advancement. A somewhat more far-sighted version of technology assessment is sometimes used to predict which changes are likely to happen. The social impacts of computerization. Technology is a tool for predicting which changes are more likely to occur. By the use of technology, it will make the human labors easy and simple. Computers may be also used as an approach to educate the children. The fact that our world are constantly driven by technology and that whether we like it or not, we need to embrace it.
Hi everyone, I'm Michelle and I will continue the discussion about technologies as form of life's 22 to 29 paragraph. So we have already begun to notice another view of technological development. Technologies are being built and put to use in human activity and human institution. The very act of using this kind of machines, techniques, and systems available to us generates patterns of activities and expectations that soon become second nature. Langdon used Ludwig's concepts of forms of life and philosophical investigations. Ludwig argued that speaking of language is a part of an activity or a form of life. Whether he meant to suggest that these are patterns naturally occur to all human beings or they are primarily cultural conventions that can change with time and setting. Technological somnambulism is a concept used when talking about the philosophy of technology. The term was used by Langdon Winner in his essay Technology as Forms of Life. Winner puts forth the idea that we are simply in a state of sleepwalking in our own meditations with technology. Ludwig was one of the most important philosophers of the 20th century. Ludwig made a major contribution to conversations on language, logic, and metaphysics, but also ethics, the way that we should live in the world. According to Ludwig, the form of life that individuals shares encompasses the concepts that they organize and the world into, the language they use to communicate, as well as their cultural practices and values. And so if Ludwig is a relativist, he has to be a relativist on both the cultural and cognitive counts. As technology becomes woven into texture of everyday existence, the devices, systems, and techniques we adopt share their tool-like qualities to become part of our very own humanity. Most changes in the content of everyday life brought by technology can be recognized as versions of early patterns. It is important to ask where modern technologies added fundamentally new activities to the range of things human beings can do. What and how have innovations in science and technology begun to alter the very conditions of the life itself? There are some accomplishments of modern technology, like the air flight, even beyond the numerous breakthroughs that have pushed the boundaries of human actions, however, lie in certain kind of changes now on horizon that would amount to fundamental change in the very condition of the human life itself. Most of the transformations that occur in technological innovations are actually variations of very old patterns. The view of technologies as form of lives Langdon is proposing has its clearliest beginnings in the writing of Karl Marx. What Karl Marx means is that a total lacking of any interpretations that finds social changes a mere side effect of technological innovations. Basically, humans produce their means of substance by the nature of means of substance they find and have to produce.
Hello, I am Apollo Daniel Mercado and I will discuss the concluding themes of this chapter. Karl Marx argues that the development of forces of production in history holds the promise of development of a many-sided individuals in all human beings. Basically, this means that if one has all the means and the access to the materials, they will develop the qualities of this particular activity. If a person has all the tools for woodworking, they will develop the human qualities of woodworking. It no longer sees it as a chore rather than an activity to further enrich the individuality. Marx argued that this can end the constitutions of capitalism. As applied to understanding of technology, the philosophies of Marx and Wittgenstein direct our attention to the fabric of everyday existence. Wittgenstein points to the vast variety of cultural practices that comprise our common world, asking us to notice what we say and when. His approach can help us recognize the way language reflects the content of technical practice. Basically, Wittgenstein argued that language is a form of life because we name patterns that we see in our everyday life, or such patterns change with time and setting. Technology functions the same in such a way that's more tangible than language. It can change over time due to human innovation, thus we can argue that it is a form of life. Marx, on the other hand, recommends that we see the actions and interactions of everyday life with an enormous tapestry of historical developments. These developments set the stage for people's ability to express themselves for their ways of being human. His mode of interpretation also includes a place for a more microscopic treatment of specific technologies in human experiences. But on the whole, his theory seeks to explain very large patterns, especially relationships between the difference of social class that unfold at each stage of the history of material production, rather than focusing on technology like that one Langdon wanted. So now back to technology as a philosophy. In this context, Wittgenstein and Marx are either one or both sufficient basis for a critical theory. Wittgenstein decides that philosophy is leave everything as it is. He leaves with a little more than like a passive traditionalism. Most Marxists have believed that that capitalism is a threat, should be destroyed, but technological expansion is entirely good in itself, and we should be encouraging of that. In its view of technological development, Marxism anticipates a history of rapidly evolving material productivity, an inevitable course of events which attempts to propose moral and political limits have no place. The philosophies of Marx and Wittgenstein share a fruitful insight, the observation that social activity is an ongoing process of world making. Throughout their lives, people come together to renew the fabrics of relationship, transactions, meaning that sustain their common existence. From this point of view, the important question about technology becomes, as we make things work, what kind of world are we making? This suggests that we pay attention not only to the physical instruments and processes, but also the production of psychological, social, and political conditions as a part of any significant technical change, where there are substantial changes being made in what people are doing at a substantial investment of resources. Then it also pays to ask advance about the qualities of artifacts, institutions, and human experiences currently on the drawing board. Inquiries of this kind present an important challenge to all disciplines of sciences and humanities. The study of politics offers its own characteristic route in this territory. As political imagination confronts the technologies of as a form of life, it should be able to say something about the choices, whether they are implicit or explicit, made in the course of technological innovation, and the grounds for making those choices wisely. And that's all for our report on the first chapter of Langdon Winners, The Whale, and the Reactor. Thank you for watching.